Let's now bring in Margaret Zulu from Save the Children to weigh in on this matter. Margaret, always great having you with us on the show. Welcome to SA Today. So once again, the safety of children in South Africa is becoming a crisis day by day, with incidents reported on a daily. Where are we as a society lacking in addressing such issues? And funny enough, I asked you this very same question maybe even a month ago.
Yes. Thank you, Alicia, for having us. And first and foremost, Save the Children South Africa condemns any form of violence against children. And you ask an important question that we believe we need to all reflect on. We need to reflect on who we are leaving our children with. Do we have safeguards at home? You know, when we leave these children, who are we entrusting these children with? What safeguards do we have in place for our children at home and wherever these children are in schools and everywhere in our communities? Are we screening people that we leave these children with? Are we checking, for instance, the sexual offenders register? Do we really screen? And it doesn't matter if it's a relative. It could be a parent. It could be a brother. It could be anyone, a sister. We need to check who we are leaving our children with. And one other thing we are not doing, and we can do better on as communities and as caregivers, we need to listen to our children, check the body language of the children. We believe as Save the Children that we need to pay a bit more attention to our children with their body language, with the things that they are trying to communicate to us. They communicate in many ways. Even a baby would communicate in certain ways. For instance, they would be crying uncontrollably when you try to give them to certain people. We are not creating safer families and environments. And for me, Alicia, having spoken about this even last year, it comes down to our communities, our families. We cannot have caregivers, parents being suspected for rape and, perpetrating violence, any form of violence against children. We do have policies and laws in place, but we need to ask ourselves as a community and as a nation, are these policies and laws working for us? Are they working for our children? What is it that we need to do? Is the justice system actually working for the children?
All right, Margaret, you make a very compelling point there, and we need to take into account, given our history, right, that most children don't even have a choice into who their guardian actually is. Now, how can parents actually identify their children are victims? I know you spoke about them checking the bodies, are actually victims of sexual abuse, especially in a family setup, and also in instances that we can't shy away from, Margaret, where family itself might be shielding the perpetrator.
It's important, Alicia, for us to appreciate Ubuntu, in our culture, in our communities, and understanding that this has helped us in a way to be the communities that we are. For instance, in this case, the community reported this case, and that is why we are here now. And so it's important within the home that we look at the child. We notice any form of differences that are happening to the child. For instance, a child that has been abused in any way, sexually, you would find that there would be physical changes on the child. Maybe there would be trauma on the genital parts of the child. They would have sexually transmitted infections, as an example. They would also just be fearful. Sometimes you find, like in this case, we have bruises on the body of the child, and it's important to pay attention. And that is why in our conversations with parenting, we do programs with parenting, We ask parents to always have those meaningful conversations with the children, bath the child, check the child. There are also behavioral changes that happen, Alicia. These could be the child not wanting to be left alone with certain people that we think we can trust with the child. Sexual behaviors, for instance, in schools that is inappropriate for a child of that age group. It could also be just a child refusing to remove clothing when it's time to bath, as an example. So that is not a comprehensive list, but there are many ways that we would want to pay attention to as caregivers when we care for our children. But emotionally also, and this is critical, we need to look at what has changed, in the behavior of the child. How are the eating habits? Are they the same? Has anything changed? It could be increased aggression, the child suddenly becomes aggressive. It could also be unexplained, health issues such as stomach ache, headaches, and the child, we can see the child is just not well. Mm-hmm. We need to trust our gut feeling and take a step, take action to protect and safeguard that child and find out, yes.
And very quickly, Margaret, speaking of action, do you think anything has changed over the years in the country's justice system when dealing with sexual offenders to ensure that the cases are actually prosecuted and justice is in fact given to the victims? We still see the issue of bail. I think I heard the president a couple of years ago saying any perpetrator who perpetrates violence against a woman or a child should not be given bail. Yet we saw in the matter of that foreign national who killed a child in Soweto last year, he was actually even eligible for parole, for bail, even though he wasn't even in the country legally.
Absolutely, and that is what we stand against. The justice system can improve. We could always improve in the way we do things. For us as Save the Children and with other stakeholders that we work with, we do not want to see a person who is suspected of having raped a child, having done any form of violence against a child, being on the streets, being in the same community that these children are being abused. We do not want to see that. And so we need to ensure that the system strengthening, in the justice system. And so it is clear in the Sexual Offences and Related Matters Amendment Act of the provisions that are there against perpetrators and also protections for the child. But how are we ensuring that this is working for the children? There are many aspects that we need to look at, that we need together to say, what can we improve in terms of implementation of the Sexual Offences Act?
Margaret, as always, thank you so much for your input. That is Margaret Zulu there from Save the Children.